It's the Endo meeting on January 29th of 2025, and we're going to talk about what it takes to get the Hermes change, the Hermes version of SES over the line, and then catch up on how's the OCAP kernel team doing over at MetaMask? What's new? And why have I not seen Eric in ages? ZB, take it away.
Okay, so first off, as promised, we've found where to get the reference to the accessor that's throwing the type error for things that we shall not catch when strict mode is on. And we've changed the permits setup so that we use strict equal for that. Leo, are you ready to bring it up on screen for a second?
Yep, sure. So let me just get this a bit bigger. So yeah, this is building off this previous pull request. So this is what we had before. This was remove unpermitted intrinsics. So this is building on from that. So we've gone ahead and pushed this to this pull request. I've realized it could have been a separate pull request after, but we pushed it here. And yeah, shout out to Sally as well for reviewing all of the threads in this pull request. So we'll be curious on your thoughts as well. So yep, here's the change. So yep, we can see it's building on from what we had before. And yeah, ZB, if you want to continue.
Yeah, if you could increase the font a little bit to make it easier, should still fit on screen. So what we're doing here is we have a strict function that's grabbing the getter from arguments callee and exposing that outside. So this is the place where we are expecting throw type error accessor to exist. Hence the name spec compliant throw type error. And then we proceed to take the fields that we know exist in Hermes and make sure that we can allow them explicitly, but only if they are non-configurable, so could not be removed later, and that the getter that's defined on those fields is strict equal to the one that we're expecting, and luckily it actually is. So this is this is enough to make us work fine on Hermes, the oldest applicable version that we need to deal with. And this is the part that we could eventually remove. There's no way we're opening anything up for any other engine the way we do it, because we can only allow things that are exactly the throw type error intrinsic.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that pretty much closes this topic. And starting from there, we've got something that I could now share.
Yep, sure.
Let's see.
To be clear, that's a pull request that's in review. Can you drop in the Slack channel, and that way we can put a bookmark on it and come back to it.
Yep, sure.
Get in our review inbox.
Yep. So with that in place, we proceeded to figure out what we could have extracted into a separate file that we would then implement differently for Hermes. And so we took what we implemented and put in there, obviously, because it would be convenient to not have it inside of SES if we're not expecting it to run on Hermes. So that's a nice to have. And then we proceeded to try to find the things that are more than nice to have, the things that are actually blocking us from running under Hermes. And it turns out that the only thing that gets in the way is assert direct eval. But what we would need to do is return nothing instead. And everything else we've identified, other than assert direct eval itself, doesn't need any changes in implementation. So I was assuming that we're going to have to change how we do eval. I don't think we even have a bookmark left in there, but let's try and find it. That's the compartment one. Tame eval, was that a thing? Yeah, I don't remember where that was, but we don't have to do anything about it. And let me give you a hand-wavy explanation why. So after we go through for the sake of some background at least, after we go through assert direct eval and just keep it working, everything else is going to work as expected. Now, why? Eval in Hermes is working, but it's never behaving as a direct eval. So here we will obviously get a failure. But other than this error being thrown, if we skip that, there's no other observable change to the behavior that would not be something we want. So the tamed eval that is being created on the global this of the global context in which lockdown runs is using eval internally because we have the evaluator implementation. But since Hermes doesn't support direct eval, it doesn't really matter that the direct eval is not working as expected because we're only implementing eval with eval. So no direct eval behavior is necessary. And also none is available. But that means we're good leaving everything else as is. And the only thing we need to do is skip the assertion.
To be clear, the premise is that on Hermes, you are only using SES for the purposes of creating tamper-resistant primordials and through lockdown, and not intending to use compartment or evaluate.
Yes, we are currently our ambitions are not yet reaching usage of compartment.
Yeah, so you wouldn't do lava mode on this version of Hermes. You would only do, well, if you did
We might come up with
inlining.
Yeah, we might come up with some other way to do it.
With a bundle format, essentially, you would solve the problem with a bundle.
Yeah, well, lacking properly working with statements, that's also not yet available, but that's a different story for another time. Here, what I want to say is that assert direct eval, the only thing that we need to do with it, the thing that we would want to propose to do with it is we add a configuration option to lockdown options that specifies whether direct eval is supposed to be available. And if direct eval is not supposed to be available in the current working conditions, we take assert direct eval and take that configuration into account and expect allowed to be false as a result. So we change the behavior of the assertion. The assertion is going to throw if the behavior of eval is different from expectations of the person using lockdown. So based on that option, we will throw if we get allowed equals false.
Can we also render it impossible to, in that environment, can we render it impossible to accidentally use compartments or compartment evaluate?
That's something I was considering, didn't get to it yet today, but there is, I think we have a bookmark for that.
Yep, we do. Yep.
And somewhere here, right? Yeah, so we could figure out a way to skip this part. So exposing compartment in this case would be skipped. Also, we've noticed that the placement of the call to assert direct eval is very early compared to when it's actually needed. I don't know if it's gating anything important or if it was just a convenient place to throw an error, but it might as well be moved much further down the line.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that the maintainers of SES would be satisfied if there is a mode, if there is a lockdown option that basically states that no evaluation is expected or required and therefore will not be provided. No mechanisms for evaluation will be provided by SES in order to eliminate the possibility of confusion.
Yeah.
Either not installing compartments or installing a compartment that has no behavior and just throws informative exceptions if it's misused. So like something like that.
There's one more thing that we could consider, although I need to research it. That would be a compartment that has a working constructor for the sake of creating compartment global this.
Yeah.
But is incapable of running anything.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. If we put a spoke in the eval wheel somewhere deep enough, that would cover all of those behaviors and still allow you to construct a compartment for the purposes of having a global object.
Yeah. Yeah, for our use case of running under Hermes, it's going to be important, at least for the current version, to avoid reaching the line that says with. Other than that, yeah.
And the line that says with is inside of the string that has to be evaled, right? So you don't run.
Nope, that string is passed into a function constructor.
Yeah, so just not calling that function constructor should be sufficient to avoid.
But we do need the function constructor to work. So it's a third state. There's one state that's the regular expected state of a JavaScript engine. The second one we've identified long ago is a JavaScript engine under content security policy where no evaluators work. And now we have an in-between state where direct eval doesn't work, but all other evaluators actually work.
Okay.
And
all right. So
Hermes is going to want that scope.
Okay, so
But,
I've got the
out.
idea. I think of course, when this comes to review, make sure that it has ample documentation and the lockdown options marked out. I think that the design direction's good. No promises on whether my fellow contributors will be happy. But I think that you're on the right path, and that as long as this does not leave us in a place where we're less sure that we have integrity on other engines, I think will be fine.
Do we have
And
any?
also delighted that you do not need to have a separate, yeah, if we don't need to have a separate compiled version, that's great.
I was just going to ask if we have any suggestion for the lockdown taming option name, because we've already got eval taming, so it's going to need to be something else.
Or it can be another mode within eval taming.
I wonder if we want a separate option that just states the fact about the engine in which we're running. So unrelated to taming, just say direct eval unavailable and set it to true.
I would agree if it were orthogonal, like if every combination of eval taming and this option were sensible. But if
should be possible.
like are they meaningful? Is it meaningful to use every combination of eval taming and eval doesn't even know
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, well, make the case. Make the case. Either now or in writing or both.
Okay, so modules exist that use eval for example from Browserify, checking whether syntax is correct. They take a string from somewhere, prepend it with throwing a primitive, and check if that primitive was actually thrown. This doesn't require direct eval, but it does require a fully functional eval. So examples of requiring fully functional eval that would work in Hermes exist in the ecosystem. And any version of taming that's more tamed than this is still going to make sense without the direct eval. Lacking direct eval, our eval is less powerful. But in Hermes, the tamed eval that allows evaluating things normally is going to be similarly useful to the original evaluator, not less, taking into account the difference between regular eval and tamed eval regardless of platform.
You would, so there are cases where you would use the tamed eval that are not for without the expectation that the evaled code is confined.
Yes, if we're not using compartments, but we are providing lockdown, we want ecosystem modules to be able to use eval under lockdown until we introduce compartments and decide otherwise.
I see. Okay. So yeah, so again, this is in that middle ground where you're using SES for mitigation of attack, not for prevention of attack.
Yeah, we want to create an environment in which it's possible to get rid of most prototype pollution and then proceed to, before we manage to introduce compartments, we will probably focus on grabbing the native bits that React Native is exposing and wrapping them in some proxies that we can control with policy. So instead of controlling everything with policy, we'll focus on the most powerful powers first.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Same applies when you have something ready for review. Drop it in the Slack channel so that I can bookmark it and make sure that it gets reviewed.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that topic or?
Leo, did I miss anything?
No, but all good. Yeah, that covers it.
All
Thanks.
right. Chip, I assume that we have a good understanding with regard to live slots at the moment and OCAP kernel needs, and do I need to push a
Um,
millstone for you?
Live slots. Well, I mean, we're still sorting out uh, the npm packaging issues with all of the type declaration export hoo-ha, which I don't pretend to understand. And I gather that Demetrius uh, uh, submitted a PR to shore that up, but I'm not sure how much of that was just the type declarations themselves and how much of it was the npm packaging, the pre-packaging or post-packaging or public, whatever the issue was there. Um, um, but it is not a blocker for us at the moment. We would because we've got a functioning workaround. And we have successfully integrated live slots with the OCAP kernel, and it's working great. Um,
Okay. Again, drop a link to the PR and hardened MetaMask if you get a chance so that I can make sure it gets attention at some point.
yeah, I will.
I remember seeing it go through my inbox, but I don't have it bookmarked, and I am not at the moment um, rallying rallying folks to get it landed.
Right, right. And as I say, I'm not sure how much of the issue it's addressing, but it's certainly a move in the direction towards improved life. So
All right. Oh, um, okay. In other news, I have been appropriated by the kernel team, so at some point I'll look at live slots.
the swing set kernel team.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, that makes me happy.
The let's see. Yeah, and I'm very curious where OCAPN fits in this, if ever. Because I think that at some point you're going to want to reach out across a connection to some other um, to something outside of your uh,
Yeah,
outside
the
of your
piece
extension.
of the live slots integration, which I have not yet done, which is an important piece of unfinished work, is um, handling all of the deliveries and syscall uh, events associated with garbage collection.
Hmm.
Right now, we just let the garbage accumulate, which is good enough for test purposes for the time being. Um, um, but I don't know how much of the OCAPN world is using the same DGC abstractions as SwingSet does.
No, it's probably not. I don't recall what
Yeah, I
events
don't think.
emits over the wire, if any at all, about release.
Yeah.
That is probably a gap we'll have to get to at some point.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just thinking over the messages, that's not one that I remember seeing.
I mean, in terms of the actual message protocol, it's actually quite simple. It's basically various variations on, hi, I'm not importing this thing anymore, and hi, I'm not exporting this thing anymore. Um, uh, but a lot of the logic of how you actually cope with those events happening has a lot of subtlety to it. In particular, how it propagates to other VATs when one VAT releases something. And of course, none of this deals with the
With
distributed cycles
adversary.
problem.
Yeah, with cycles or adversaries for that matter.
Yeah.
But even the simple case, like um, on the agoric side, there's a kernel that can mediate all of that. And as soon as you
That's
remove
right.
that privileged position, then things get more complicated.
That's right. Distributed, absent a market mechanism, distributed garbage collection is necessarily a cooperative activity. And if someone is not cooperating, well, then you're in a world of hurt.
Well, no, it has to, the answer must be more sophisticated than your own world of hurt. You have to provide a lever that the agent can use to mitigate the situation.
Right. And
Cover
certainly,
that. That's what you say when you talk about a market.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
precisely-
Well, I guess there's two pieces of that. One is the I refuse to put up with this anymore feature, which is the ultimate means by which you can unilaterally disassociate with somebody from somebody who's not cooperating properly. Um, um, and that's kind of independent of the other dimension, which is how do you decide that you've given up? You know, what is your impatience policy? And a
Yeah, and how do you
charging rent is one way to do that, where you evict somebody when,
when they fail to pay.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, how do you attribute retention to other agents? And yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so yeah, all right. Things to think about later. Yeah, okay, cool. Hi, Eric. Where you been?
Hello. I have been, well, I think what happened is that you went on your Christmas thing, and then I went on my Christmas thing. And when I got back, you were not in the Endo Sync, and so I missed you a couple of weeks. And now here we are, reconvened at last in the new year.
I see. Yeah, that's right. I have also had some lapsed time.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm on my way to something, so I apologize if my sound quality dips. But yeah, what am I up to?
Well, more important than that, can you provide any assurance that you still love us?
Oh yes, I most certainly do. And I've been thinking about you a lot, despite not being in the Endo Sync, and using stuff you've worked on a daily basis.
Okay, these are all the words I love to hear.
And then and I was hoping, so I'm looking at some endo errors assert stuff that is disagreeing with our test framework. But Chip was saying that Markham might be the guy to talk to, and I'm also not at my device currently, and looking at some of the code might be helpful. So I don't know if that's best saved for the top of the next Endo Sync, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. When you have a place to enter the conversation, that sounds good.
Cool. Right. I will add that to the agenda and attempt to slot it in at the top next week.
Let's see if I can pull the strings that make Mark appear in this meeting.
Yeah. I mean, basically as is often the case with development testing tools, a lot of the harden and lockdown and freeze stuff is at odds with the wacky shit that testing tools want to do.
Well, testing tools have overlapping concerns with what we do with lockdown and compartments, and ideally, we would write a test runner based off of compartments and lockdown.
Yeah. Well, thing is assert likes to freeze the error, or likes to harden the error that gets thrown when
Oh yes.
And because non-frozen things being thrown is bad, and testing tools want to dink with the error object for reasons known only to them, and it's unclear what's going on, whether, because there's lots of things that in testing tools in particular, for reasons I haven't quite understood, that kind of violate the rules of what well-behaved JavaScript should be, sometimes purposefully and sometimes just due to laziness and sloppiness. And
or not being not having design, not having composition with hardened JavaScript as a design requirement.
Exactly. And not I mean, as I was saying to Eric a little earlier, anyone can freeze an error object before they throw it. So you know, hardened JavaScript's interests here are a subset of things that can happen in the wild. But the other issue is, of course, somebody else's test tool is some code that is under somebody else's control. And if you are dependent on it working correctly and it doesn't get along with hardened JavaScript, then we have sort of an irreconcilable difference that must somehow be reconciled.
Sure.
And understanding what the heck is happening is a first step. And I know Mark has done a lot of stuff specifically with the stack censorship machinery to deal with, in a developmental environment, we would like things to be less fussy because you want to see all the information to debug your program, and controls that through environment variables. And it's not clear whether this is part of that story, or whether this is just some completely other thing that's going on.
Yes, and it's in my backlog to investigate why we are not seeing stacks in certain circumstances. We are expecting to see stacks.
Right. And I know Mark is very concerned about the developer experience, just from the perspective of trying to evangelize hardened JavaScript to the outside world, which is why I suggested to Eric that he might be a resource on this, because that is one of the things he obsesses over.
Yeah, happily, developer experience is my mandate, has been my mandate for at least half a year.
Very good.
And
Okay.
on that note, the preserve formatting stuff is very near to landing. So I know that OCAP kernel has not yet had much experience debugging bundled code, but you will.
Oh, we are using bundled code now, so yes, we will.
So you may be seeing skeletons that we have not yet stuffed in the closet yet.
Yes, I'm having visions of Diablo where you whack the barrel and a skeleton comes out, attacks you.
You whack the skeleton and it shatters very satisfyingly. Yeah, we're near there. We're near there.
And as a result, you get coins.
Wow.
Which are unhittable, which is very dissatisfying. All right.
What use do skeletons have for money? What use do slime blobs
They
have
only use coins. It's for the jingling sound, I'm pretty sure.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
All right. I dedicate the remaining 20 minutes of this meeting to digressions in this vein. Go. I think we're good. All right. Oh, yeah.
We could do that off the record for the sake of person editing.
Sure. Thank you. All right. Let's call it. That was a meeting. See you all next time. We definitely will not be talking for the next 20 minutes.